One of the companies that we don't lose sleep around, as far as financing goes, is Snowline Gold. Okay, this company has successfully raised money. A lot of it, the support in the early days did come from groups like ourselves and a few other select investors. But now with the discovery at Valley, yeah, these guys are able to attract money, and that's great. That means they can go out and perform their art of discovery. And the company, although Valley is getting closer and closer to a point where it's almost drilled out. In other words, it's close to a point where we can kind of see the limits of it. Not saying the limits are closed off by any stretch, okay, but we can see a case here where this project can be now advanced through economic study. The company's kind of shifting. It's going from exploration, at least at Valley, to more of a development story. Okay, but they have a lot of cash, and I know they also have ambition to continue their exploration work, and that's what I enjoy the most. I'm an exploration geologist. I like to see what companies are going to pursue, and I think one of the biggest open doors, if you will, that I can see after last year's field season, as far as chasing an immediate potential target nearby to Valley is a particular hole that's on this image. It's kind of hard to see, and it's buried up in the northeast corner, the upper right corner of this image. Yes, this is a cut from the last news release. I think this release came out a few weeks ago. But there's a drill hole underneath the T in 3.24 gram per ton gold, and there's a black dot, and there's a hole that goes kind of northwestish. That hole, I think, is numbered 115, if I remember right. And that one encountered a very long intercept of very strongly anomalous gold. In fact, probably, potentially economic levels of gold in some of it. Okay, now notice that how far away that hole is from the rest of the drilling. Yes, there's a few holes to the north, but really that vector, which is going to the northeast, appears to be open. Okay, and I'm just kind of a bit obsessive at times, and that hole, like, I know it's not the world beater hole that they drilled last year. I mean, look at the other holes they drilled here, like this 617 meter of 1.68 grams. That's crazy stuff. Okay, and that's right in the Valley deposit. That's great, but that hole, that 115, that hole that I just mentioned, keeps nagging me. This is the one I wake up at 3 in the morning thinking, oh, I wonder what's going on there. Okay, now I'm going to put it in context. All right, so we're going to go over to the image on the right hand side, and you can see this is out of their presentation. They'd simply cut and pasted it here. You can see the area of Valley, which is kind of on the left hand side of that image on the right. That reddish circle is more or less the same area that you see here that's been drilled. Okay, so that hole 115 is kind of to the right hand of that area. Okay, it's testing the fringes of it. And the thing that's always kind of nagged me is this Gracie target. We've learned about this target way back, I think in 2022, I think, or maybe it was 2023, can't remember. And the company did go in and drill a few holes here, but this Gracie target, which is to the east of Valley Discovery, has a lot of gold, guys. It has a lot of gold. It is a steep part of the property. It's steep terrain. You can kind of see from the shaded relief in that image. This is a steep mountainside. But man, there's a lot of gold shedding. All those little orange dots that you see there are telling us there is a gold system to be found, perhaps, in this area. Well, we know that from the magnetics, which is the colors that you see there, the rainbow colors, that there's a bit of a low spot there. That greenish area underneath the Gracie target was originally interpreted to be an intrusion, poking its nose up. And, in fairness, they did hit some dikes and, some granite dikes in those holes that were drilled there, but they didn't hit a mothership. Okay. Now, why is the rest of the area around that bright pink? Well, that magnetism, effectively, that rock is highly magnetic, probably reflects an abundance of a mineral called pyrrhotite, which forms through metamorphism. Usually when an intrusion comes up and cooks the rock around it, You get, if there's sulfur and iron in that rock, you can get them to combine to form this mineral called pyrrhotite, which is magnetic and usually expresses as a very strong magnetic signature, like we see in this image. Okay, now here's what I'm starting to think. I'm thinking, all right, we can see there's a bit of gold kind of leaving the building here, so to speak, at Valley. Like it's an open door, and it's going off to the northeast from the Valley system. That's heading over in that direction of Gracie. Maybe the original interpretation that that green spot at Gracie was an intrusive. Maybe that's not quite right. Maybe there's an intrusive kind of buried up underneath that strong magnetic area. Okay. One of the things I've learned about exploration is, boy, when you see something kind of creeping off and leaving, your area of focus, you got to pay attention to those because they often lead. They often, no guarantees. There's never guarantees in life, but those can lead to another discovery. Okay. And, there's a few other details about that drill hole, that 115, that really caught my attention, like the intrusive rock itself that they hit in there, in that porphyry, that real knobbly porphyry that they've seen so many times, is in there. So there's a kind of a dike or some magma trying to squirt their way out in that northeast direction. Maybe they're going over to Gracie. Maybe there's something more to be found here. The company has a lot of money. Am I telling them, hey, go nuts? Let's drill, 20,000 meters looking for the next valley out here? No, I'm not. But I guess what I'm saying is, given the money they have, I wouldn't be surprised if the company, and look, the company makes its own decisions, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them follow up on that hole 115, and see, if they can chase that thing. Maybe that's the better approach. Start at Valley and kind of work your way over towards Gracie, following the gold, following the yellow brick road, so to speak. Maybe that's a better way to lead to the next discovery. And look, it is not uncommon for these reduced intrusive systems to generate multiple lenses or pods or deposits. Okay, and in many cases these can be big. Okay, yeah, look at Valley, it's huge. So really interesting. I think there's a lot of future here, and the company has a lot of cash. I know they're going to test other targets too. They have a lot of follow-up to do on some of their newest greenfield targets. I think they'll put some money there, and then they do have more infill to do here at Valley. Not a heap of infill, but they have some incremental infill that they must do. All right, let's go to the next slide. Sitka, man. These guys have hit the ground running this year. They've started their 30,000 meter program. They are cashed up. Wonderful to see, and they're being aggressive. Now in the winter, you can only drill so much. You don't want to. It's good that they're drilling. I love this, but you don't want to just throw 10 rigs out there and start spending money like mad. Okay, it's snowy and it's cold and it's tough to go, but they are able to drill, and they've already completed. It looks like a couple holes, maybe one complete hole, and then they're on to the next hole. So 75 and 76. And here this week they released some visuals. Go to the next slide. I think in terms of visuals, it's visuals around the gold that they're seeing in the drill hole, and they've really adopted the snowline schematic for illustrating the where they think they're going to see some good numbers, and that's by putting the little yellow stars where they're seeing visible gold in the corner. That's great. Okay, this is wonderful. As I think late last year when they got all their data back, I did a 3D model and I said, hey, this high grade is still open, guys. It seems that they've refined their targeting here, and they've hit it again. Okay, they're on the path. Okay, so this is very important. I think hole 75 is important, but in blue or green, they've got hole 76, which is even further below that. We'll see what they hit in that one. That'll be quite interesting. Remember, these reduced intrusions have these apophyses that come off, like the upside down cow. Well, this area at Blackjack target is definitely one of them, and they've latched onto that and they're following it and doing a good job. So I think we'll see really good results out of this company this year. Go to the next slide. Okay, and look, I can't promise anything. I gotta be a little more realistic here, I think, at times. So I'll just say I like the fact Sitka is going to drill 30,000 meters, and I wish them a heck of a lot of luck because I think it's a fantastic project. Goliath too. Okay, they saw McEwen come in here recently, and they've gotten some warrant exercises. I think. I mean, they've got money coming at them, and that's good. The company is definitely got a lot of legs. They have an ambitious program, strategized for 2025, and a lot of that work is really targeting this kind of new revelation that the gold system at Sherbet is likely closely associated with a particular magmatic event. In other words, we found or that I should say, they have found what is probably a smoking gun. The magma, the mothership that generated the gold-bearing fluids that created this deposit, also created a number of dikes. So these are cracks in the ground where magmas rose up through. And all of these orange and yellow features that you see are basically interpreted dikes that exist that kind of lace through the whole Sherbet project. And what's really important is they did have a few holes there. Of course, they're targeting the Sherbet zone, so they're poking holes down at this. But they did have a few holes that actually cross some of these dikes, and lo and behold, they hit nice mineralization, like you see on the left hand side there. There's that core is a dike. Okay, it's a dike host. It almost looks like something out of snowline, believe it or not. It's a reduced intrusive dike, probably coming off a larger magma chamber at depth, but it's just laced by little quartz veins, some with very high grade gold. And they've actually seen some really, really nice assays out of that. Now, what does this mean for their exploration? Look, I think they're starting to see that not only do they have these sheet-like layered high grade, not flat, but low angle lodes. They have these upwelling zones along these dikes where both the magma and the fluids came up, and those are in their own right are targets. Okay, now you think back the first year they were out here, they actually recognized some of these near vertical things. I think they call them the Cloud Nine and something else, can't remember. They had different names, but I don't think they realized that they were so closely associated with those dikes. And now they do. Okay, so now they have kind of a new holistic model to explore. They got money. They're really, this is really going to be an interesting year for them. I think the most important thing around Goliath is they know from all of the drilling they've done today where the highest grades are starting to kind of coalesce. And I think there's going to be a particular focus on chasing that higher grade area, which is kind of over in that Bonanza lode and associated dikes, really, on the what would be the south side of the mountain, which is the top image in the upper right there. All right, let's go to the next slide. I'll try not to be so long in my explanations here. Get excited. But look, Hennigh Metals, this Provisto alkalic system is absolutely crazy. Okay, I was in Peru right before COVID. I went down there to see Mike Hudson and his team, Lars, and et cetera, all of them. And I remember, daily looking at my phone thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get home because they're going to shut down the airlines and I'm going to get stuck in nowhere, Peru, and like it was crazy. But this was the last place I went to before COVID. Okay. And, Mike and Lars were telling me what they wanted to do. Yes, they were looking for copper. But I said, guys, if you blag up and down the east side of the range here, the Andes, you could probably find your targets just with these stream sediment samples. So I showed them how to take blag samples, and that's what they did. They did that for like two years, 2 seasons. During COVID, they just collected blags up and down for like 150 kilometers or something. And guess what they found? They found this monster gold anomaly, this Provisto gold anomaly. They dug a trench on this. I think it was late last year. They got the results, 69 meters of 2.4 grams in the first trench that's been dug here. I know that it's the rainy season. It's kind of just at the end of the rainy season. I think from talking to Lars, I think they're going to be aggressive. They're going to get in there, dig a lot more trenches. That area they dug the trench just happened to be one of the easiest places they could get to. But they're going to dig some more trenches. What should we see out of the company? I think we're going to see a lot more news around trenches. And at the same time, they're working in the background to get their drill permits to come in here and drill. Okay, so Provisto is a story in the making. It will take a little while to get that drill permit. Doesn't bother me too much because we will see a lot of data come through as they trench the property. Now, they've also recently found this little Provisto copper discovery. I say little, it's not little. It's a pretty big target, it's nearly 3/4 of a kilometer long. And they've dug some trenches here. Now, bear in mind, at surface trenches, there's leaching, okay, because rains trickle down through the ground. So the numbers they see here, they're very interesting, like 0.1, 0.2% copper. But that rock's also been attacked by rainwater over eons, okay, and it's probably leached some of that copper. So what they're saying here is they found a big copper anomaly, and they've demonstrated that through these trenches. Okay, this is not to be taken lightly. I think in addition to this gold system off to the side here, we now have yet another one of these copper targets. They have other copper targets further to the south at Belen, and I think they're going to drill those here not too distant future. But this Provisto gold target, that's my favorite. I love this story. I think they're going to find the next Cripple Creek. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, silver 47. This excitement around silver seems to have infected a lot of silver bug types, and they're putting money to work. Okay, we're starting to see silver stories garner. Oh, by the way, with Hennigh, they had some warrants exercised, so they're basically cashed up. That was my punchline there. Sorry. But with silver 47, a lot of attraction for silver. And people are now picking up on this story. They do have a resource put together. It's kind of an early stage, high level resource, inferred mostly. About 15 million tons, a little over 7 point something percent zinc equivalent, which is about 335 grams silver equivalent. Okay, but it's a big resource. Okay, and it's, in my view, potentially just getting started. Okay, I'd really like to see this. I love the fact they've raised money. I think this is a good sign, and I'd really like to see this company not only drill to expand both the Dry Creek and the West Thunder Flats targets, but look at all these targets they have. All these red stars are basically VMS targets that they need to test this year, and I'd love to see them test several, if not most, of these targets over the course of the year. They have the money to do it. They have the drills. I think this could be a really exciting story if they get out there and do some hard work this year and drill some holes and maybe they make another discovery or two of these VMS systems. This could turn into a camp. Okay, so I really like the fact they got the cash. I like the sign that the market's telling us silver is back in vogue, and I wish them a lot of luck. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is an interesting story because this isn't quite exploration. They've explored at Dome Mountain, don't get me wrong, but Blue Lagoon, it has actually achieved getting their permit to develop the underground mine at Dome Mountain. And this is kind of a jaw-dropping, monumental achievement. It's tough to get permits these days, guys, but they managed to get a permit in BC. It sounds like BC is really trying to get open the door to mining and get things moving, which is a great sign to see. And here we go. Blue Lagoon has, after 3 or 4 years of chipping away, they've gotten their full permit to operate at Dome Mountain. Now, the company has a resource here. In fact, basically from the adit level up is most of the resource. They got like 200 and some odd thousand ounces, I think 220,000 ounces, somewhere in that range. And it's something around a half an ounce per ton. I mean, this is a very, very high grade project. Now, the other exciting part is they have access to a mill with Nikola Mining. Nikola is a little mining company that's not too far away. They have a mill that can treat the rock from this mine. Okay, so this is a good story. You have basically a really high grade asset. You can mine, truck it over to this mill, and you can produce really high grade concentrates. I know there's some leverage with those concentrates because the party that buys the concentrates is the same group that buys our concentrates in Bolivia. So I know that there's a very high demand for those, and I think there's some leverage for finance around that too. But if there's one company I would say has a lot of momentum we'll call it in the small space of mining, but it has a lot of momentum to actually get into a strong cash flow scenario, it is Blue Lagoon. I got to give these guys credit. Now they have brought on an advisory team, a mining advisory team, and they've really upped their game here recently to to give a lot of confidence to the market that they can pull this off. They got First Nation support, but I really want to see these guys succeed, because if this story can succeed, a lot of other stories in BC and really elsewhere in Canada could probably pull off the same success. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, one of these stories that is just, it's got so much support because of the joint venture structure, the earn-in joint venture structure they have with Anglo Gold. It's Inflection. Okay, Inflection Resources has a very large land package in New South Wales. They're looking for blind, we call it Cadia type porphyry systems. These are world-class copper gold porphyries. They're older than the ones we see in British Columbia and the US here. These are quite a bit older in age, but geologically they're very, very similar. Okay. And after 2 or 3 years, I think, since they signed this agreement with Anglo and poking a number of holes down into the ground, they have finally started to see what is getting closer and closer to perhaps a discovery. Okay, it's not an economic discovery at all yet, but man, they're seeing some good numbers. Okay, 0.36 gram gold, 0.07% copper, in that middle tag there, over 54 meters. These are very, very interesting numbers. There we got 35 meters of 0.4 gram gold and 0.06%. Look, if they drill around here, my hunch is there is something bigger and hopefully more Cadia-like. What is Cadia? It's a giant, hundreds of millions of tons porphyry, and it grades about 0.5 gram gold, 0.6 gram gold, somewhere in that neighborhood, and about 0.2, 0.3% copper. Okay, could there be a discovery like that here? Yes, geologically, this looks very similar. Looks like they're on the edge of it. Where is it? Don't know. Is it a bit deeper? Is it in or out of the section? Is it off to the side? Don't know yet. But I think the company's on the right track. And with the money they have from Anglo Gold and the commitment, I think they could, we could wake up one day and be pleasantly surprised. Let's hope. Okay. No promises, but it would be just delightful to see a brand new Cadia type discovery made by a company in our portfolio. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, Brixton. Now, Brixton has cash. They got pretty decent treasury. I can't remember exactly, but it's a few $1,000,000 and enough to go out and do some work this season. And look, late in the season last year, they found some really interesting copper occurrences. I really hope they follow up on those. But the other one that really catches my attention here, and I think I think the company's openly said is going to be a big focus for them, is the Trapper Gold target. Okay, they've drilled a lot of holes, but in a very, very narrow area. There, you can see kind of in the middle of that brightly colored image. The geophysics is telling us, and the surface results they have is telling us there's a lot of structure in here that could potentially host more gold lodes, gold veins, whatever you want to call them. My view is this is an alkaline gold system. I would love to see the company do some CSAMT and look for those gradients like we did at in Tuvalu in Fiji, because that improved our odds of successful drilling. I know that people watch this video. Hopefully they listen here and maybe do a few CSAMT sections. But nonetheless, in the magnetics that we can see here, there are clearly some big structures, and there's gold values that are sprinkled along those structures. So I think there's a lot more work that should be done here, and they will allocate a lot of their budget towards gold this year. All right, go to the next slide. Mogotes, they have a good treasury, and now they've picked up all of this new ground down in this Chile-Argentina border region, and they're sitting right next to this Aurora deposit, which now belongs to BHP and Lundin Mining, by the way. Okay, so that I think that deal is now complete. That was a $4.6 billion acquisition, guys. I mean, there's no way I would diminish my enthusiasm for what these guys could potentially deliver. It is exploration, could be nothing there. Sure, no problem. That happens in life. We know that a lot of our companies don't deliver. Okay, but we're in it for the discoveries and backing smart people who do good science and try to make those discoveries. No guarantees, but man, these guys appear to be on the right path. That area that's basically to the left on the top there, where it's colored, that is Magote's tenure. That's their ground. And there's a gap there where it's white, and you might say, well, that's strange. Well, that's that newly optioned ground. Okay, they are doing geophysics and other work to try to fill in the data in there so they can develop these targets better. They're also doing work at surface to map and understand the alteration packages better. It doesn't mean we should go out and drill immediately. No, let's let them do good science. I did get to see the guys at PDAC, and I know that they're doing a really good job in the field. It's getting a bit late, so seasonality is a big factor here. You got to understand that as we go into spring, which is the case right now in North America, they're going into fall. Okay, so winter is going to be in a month or two, and you don't really want to be up on top of a 15,000-foot mountain when it starts snowing. Okay, so let's see them get their field work done. Does it mean they're going to make a discovery right away? Well, I think we'll see a lot of good data come out of this program, but the drilling might have to wait till, say, February. When can they start drilling again? Probably February, March, something like that. Okay, let's go to excuse me, totally backwards. I mean, August or September is when they can start drilling again. Okay, go to the next slide. This is some of the work they're doing. Okay, and what keeps me committed to this excitement around this story is every photo they send out. Yeah, it's some guy sitting on a weird orange outcrop, but I know what this rock means, and I know it from these descriptions. I know that they're seeing the right things. They're basically seeing the upper expressions of, like the epithermal expression of a porphyry that could be below. And all of these rocks appear to be mineralized. A lot of this is on their newly acquired ground. I mean, this is exciting stuff. I want to see them do this good science and put these maps together and build the best targets they can. Okay, do not get in a rush, because as soon as you get in a rush, you spend your money and you're out of money and you're crawling on your knees looking for more money. So what? Okay, you got good treasury. Do the hard work and get your targets lined up properly. Okay, that's the way it should be done. All right, let's go to the next slide. Novo. Okay, I'm director. We have go back one. No. There we go. We have a fair bit of cash. We sold a position of our SCM shares a few months ago that gave Novo a lot of cash to work with, and we have a number of projects lined up for drill testing over the next few months. In fact, I'm going to be going down to Australia in the next couple of months. We have a lot of drill targets we're going to test, and one of them we've been wanting to follow up on, but for lack of cash, we haven't, is this Bala Bala project. Okay, this is north of the Hennigh discovery. Hennigh, which was the Gray Mining, now is bought by Northern Star. It was a big transaction. I think it was 5 billion Australian dollars acquisition. It was huge. And that's on that structural belt. If you look on the left, that was on that structural belt. There's a black line that trundles through there that goes kind of southwest, northeast. Now, there's another belt, the Bala Bala structure, this big structure, that we're focused on to the north. And we think, based on the magnetics and stuff that we see on the right-hand side here, that there could be another Hemi analog. Okay, so this is one of those areas where we do think it's all covered. It's flat as a pancake there. It's covered. Drilling holes down through the sand and stuff to get down to the target is necessary. So we're going to go out there and we're going to basically drill lines of holes across some of these best targets. This is intriguing. This is how big discoveries are made. Has anybody really done any serious work here ever? No. This is a pure greenfields exploration play. My team's done a great job developing the targets, and we are going to go out and test these things for the first time. And that's how Hennigh was discovered. It was a blind target that was found very much like what we're doing here. So with a little luck, maybe we hit something. Any promises? Nope. No promises in exploration. But we got to try. Let's go to the next slide. What is this company? This is interesting. Westward. This is a company that is now well cashed up. It is a Nevada exploration company. I promise I will talk more about this in the not too distant future. Okay, but I'm going to throw out a teaser, plug for them right now. When I say plug, I'm not really, trying to promo plug, but I want to give a little bit of feel for the geology that these guys are tackling. All right, I went to Google Earth and I literally took a screenshot of the area. Their property is basically towards the lower left of this image. It's not shown on there. I didn't have the shapefile to go in and plug it in, but basically it's around this bald mountain area. Okay, now where is this? This is kind of north central Nevada. The location is called Cortez, Nevada. If you want to look it up, you can go there. And in this image, believe it or not, there's over 100 million ounces of gold that have been produced or, in inventory and resources and reserves in the ground. Those kind of, scratching, areas up in the north and the center, those are big mines. Okay. The one in the upper left is Pipeline. Also Gold Acres is up there. The one that's more towards the center, that's Cortez Hills, as well as the old Cortez mines. Huge deposits. Okay. 15, 20 million ounces, each of them. We also have Gold Rush. It's kind of hard to see, but Gold Rush is a drilled target or project that's to the east, so the right of Cortez Hills. And we have other deposits in inventory here. I won't go through the whole detail, but I love the Cortez area, and I've said this before in context of some other companies we've invested in, because if you look at the big districts in Nevada, okay, each one of these districts, for example, Carlin, they have a long history of exploration and mining, but then there's this one moment where the big one is found. Okay, in the case of Carlin, it was a gold strike deposit. Basically, gold strike, all of the mines up until that point were, a few million ounces, maybe up to 20 million ounces, something like that. But then, bam, they found this gold strike deposit, which was over 50 million ounces up in the Carlin Trend, which is, by the way, it's about 80 miles to the northeast from here. Okay, but the Cortez area, they've never found that big monster. Okay, that big monster. Okay, now I have a bit of history with this project because I did a reconstruction for a company I used to work for, where I basically pushed Nevada back together pre-faulting to see how things lined up, what they look like. And I've talked about this before, like New Legacy. I still love that ground. It's a shame, like Kevin said, it's a shame they don't have money right now. I'd love to see them get back on their feet. But this is one of those other pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, that I really, really, really like. In fact, this was my number one target. New Legacy's ground was number two when I went out into the junior space and started working in exploration in this world. Okay, now this project has been tucked away for years. This project we're going to say it's right there at Bald Mountain, more or less. It's been tucked away for a long, long time, and nobody's really tackled it because it is what we call off trend. Okay, if you think of a trend as being linear, so like from Pipeline to Cortez Hills to Gold Rush to New Legacy, it's a straight line. This one is over to the southwest of that line. But there's something really interesting about Nevada. Over the past 20, 30 million years, the crust has been pulled apart. And so the different mountain ranges that we have across the state have actually pulled apart from one another and become detached. Okay, so that means that the geology of one can be matched up more or less with the other. And if you push this back together, voila, you got a whole picture. Okay, now notice the valley in the bottom there. It's kind of symmetrical. Like the margins of it go down and they go down like this. That's one of those, chasms, those open up, those valleys that have opened up through extension as the crust has been pulled apart. Imagine pushing Bald Mountain now back, push it back to the east here. And Bald Mountain would all of a sudden be more in line, not quite in line, but more in line with the Cortez Hills Pipeline Trend. You push that back over here, and it's getting close. Okay, now the target that these guys have developed, and they've done geophysics, they've done geochemistry, they've done all the hard yards, is probably under the word under the OU on Bald Mountain, somewhere around that location is where they're going to drill these first holes. They've identified a target that's really interesting. Very high arsenic values at surface, so it's telling us there's something coming up from below. But they also have really good geophysics, and I don't want to spoil the punchline because I will talk about this more another time. But I would say this is one of my most compelling targets in Nevada. I'm delighted to see this company pick this up, and these guys are young. They're full of energy. I do know some of the geologists who work here. I've worked with them in past in my career. Very smart people, and I think they've got a reasonable shot. Is there any promise they're going to make a big discovery? No, there's never a promise, but I do think they're in the right neighborhood, and seeing them get the support, the financial support, means the market is turning, guys. It's really encouraging to see these greenfield companies, these companies that want to go out on that big elephant hunt, get some money and go do big things, and we're proud to be supporters. All right, go to the next slide. And I promise I won't take as long as the rest of these slides. Okay, I'm going to kind of cut to the chase. So there's a lot of companies that we'll say are getting their ducks in a row. Okay, it has been a tough go for a lot of junior companies, a lot of exploration companies, but we're starting to see a lot of stories get oriented and get their back into their investment thesis. And that's nice to see. So I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, but I think they need to be said. Go to the next slide. Okay, Newfound Gold. Look, this is a company that's in transition. They made the discovery. They did the left hand of the Lassonde curve thing. Okay, they went down and they're in that development, trough now. What have they done? They brought a new team in. I got to speak with the new team about 2 weeks ago, right after PDAC. We had a follow-up call. Very exciting story that Keith and Paul Hewitt wasn't on the call, but Keith Boyle and other members of his team were on this call and told me what they want to do here. And I think they're making the right steps. Okay, they're going to take this thing from an exploration story, which it's been a great exploration story. Okay, but they're going to make it into a mine, and that's one of my common themes. You got to find a deposit with the intent of mining it. Okay, and I think these guys get it, and I think this is one of those where now we got the right-handed side of the Lassonde curve to look forward to. Go to the next slide. Lion One. Okay, Lion One. I love Wally dearly. I know he listens to these, and I really hope he's doing okay. Heck of a guy. One of the legends in mining. Respect him tremendously. He's had a heck of a history. But they have brought in new management into the company here recently, and I think it's actually going to be a good outcome. One of the things that the new management is pursuing is what's called a flotation circuit at Tuvatu Gold Mine. Okay, they're going to put into the mill a flotation component. What does this mean? Flotation, in my view, is how they're going to achieve higher gold recoveries and really just kick this thing into high gear. There's two ways of growing. You either mine more ore or you recover more gold out of the ore you're mining. Okay, if your grade is kind of fixed, and you can do one or the other. Well, they've realized, I think, in rightly so, that they can grow their gold production. Their revenues will increase by pursuing this flotation circuit. The other thing I know is that those flotation concentrates are very highly desired in the concentrate markets right now, and they could probably leverage that to finance this expansion. This is a company, like I showed about a week or two ago, where their trend is improving over time. They're seeing more tons, better grade, more production, et cetera, et cetera. Add this to the mix, maybe about 6 months, they come back and they're laughing here. Okay, there's never promises. Okay, there's never promises. Mining is a tough gig, but I love to see them taking the right steps. Okay, so I think this is important. Let's go to the next slide. El Oro had a killer hole. Okay, so this is one where I have a bit of an update. So this was a news release that came out not too long ago. Crazy long intercept. What is this? 151.47 grams over 135 meters. Okay, that's a lot of silver. It's almost 5 ounces per ton silver. Oh, 135 meters. And that's within 309 meters of 90.92, which is about 3 ounces, not quite, but close to 3 ounces. That's a big darn drill hole. Okay, that's nice to see. And it's an infill hole in this area that they're trying to beef up their infill, the knowledge to improve their resource. Guys, if there's one punchline I will say here, these guys need to drill the infill holes, period. Okay, this must be drilled properly on a spacing like, say, what Snowline did at Valley, where they can build a solid core resource in this higher grade part of the system that they can then take the project forward. Now, what does that mean? It means they're going to have to raise some money, okay, because drilling costs money. But these results tell us that the system's there and it's going to deliver. All those kind of gaps and areas that were poorly understood when they came out with the first resource are now going to be improved by results like this. It's that simple. Okay, the company needs to keep going and get that cash in the door so they can keep drilling. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to touch on all of these really quickly. I know there's a bunch. It's a bit overwhelming. PJX. PJX is looking for that Sullivan zinc discovery up in BC. Did they find it last year? No, but they gathered enough data that it looks like they know where to drill this year, and they do have some cash, so they can get back to work. I think May, June, when the snow clears, they can get back in the saddle. That's encouraging. Do they need to raise some more? I don't know. The company has to make these decisions, but I do know they have some cash and they can get back to work. Okay, Rackla made look, the grad reduced intrusive that they discovered late last year, to me, it looks like the real deal. I got to see some of the stuff at PDAC a couple of weeks ago, talked to Simon briefly. I'm telling you, man, if there's one where it's just sticking out of the ground, you can see just veins all over the place, it's Rackla. Okay, I know that they've had 2 years where they've tested things, didn't quite pan out. Some mixed results in a couple of cases, but this one at grad, my gut says this might be the year that kind of catalyzes them. Any promises? No, can't make any promises, but they at least have some channel samples across the outcrops where they return really strong gold results. Okay, so hopefully we see those replicated in the drilling that they do. How much money they have right now? Probably enough to be dangerous. Yeah, so basically you get the theme. Everything on this slide deck, or in this slide in particular, companies are going to have to, get their financial ducks in a row, like I said at the beginning. All right, Kingfisher. Look, Dustin's done a great job bolting together land. Is he done yet? I don't know. You can never tell with Dustin. I hope, at some point here he kind of culminates in whatever endeavor he's pursuing as far as conglomerating these projects together. But he also now needs to get to work. The field season's coming up. We want to see some action out of him. They've already got a huge inventory of targets. Some of them are very close. For instance, the Galore Creek, which I think it's a Hickman target in particular, looks really ripe. Okay, love to see the company get out there and raise some money, drill some holes, do the work they need to do, because I think they have one of the best land positions in the Golden Triangle. Altamira, I firmly believe they are on a very large reduced, it's an older system. Okay, it's much older in age, but it's a reduced intrusive type system. So think Sitka or Snowline. It's basically the upside down cow. And they've already found 5 porphyries that are scattered across this area. They need to drill. They need money. They need to drill. Irving, the company, and I'm director, the company has 2 great projects drilling on both. So both at Yamagana, which is supported by Newmont and Sumitomo, the financing there. And we also have GX funding the drilling up at Omu. I have aspiration out to drill some holes myself. I never like to sit still. And I have some other targets that I would love to test. So to do that, guess what? I need a bit of cash in the bank. We do have good support, but it would be nice as gold prices lift to get, spread our wings and get going again. All right, Intrepid. I think Kevin mentioned this. Look, U.S.-based copper gold story. What's not to love there? Okay, all of a sudden the world's, with Trump's pronouncement about critical minerals. All these stories in the U.S. are taking off like a rocket. Okay, Intrepid's going to be one of. It's in Arizona. It's in a region that's already known for mining. It's a great system. They've got big neighbors around them. Where the company goes, I don't know, but let's get back in the saddle, guys. Come on, let's go. Okay, Red King, and I talked about them a couple of weeks ago. I really think at Kendall they had a near miss. Long intervals, like or 600 meters of 0.1x% copper. That ain't no fluke. Okay, they need to come on, get back, get somebody, get back and drill some holes. Darn it, let's go. BCM. Here we go. Another story. It's in the U.S. Copper. Guess what? The U.S. is waking up, realizes it's got to have these metals, or at least our new administration does. That's great. BCM, all of a sudden, I don't know what's happening today, but somebody's clearly fallen in love with the story. That's great to see. Okay, maybe this press about Trump's, I don't know if it's an executive order or what the heck it is, but this pronouncement about critical minerals is starting to light a fire under these guys. Okay, all of these American stories. This is good. It's good. And it's not just copper and stuff. It's gold too, which is really good. Okay, but BCM, come on, let's go. I think they're going to have. I think they're trying to get their ducks in a row. I think they'll have some, hopefully, promote material. The guy that did the videos for Newfound, and then he did the videos for Goliath, I think he's going to be doing some videos for BCM. We call him Hollywood Tony, a good friend of mine who used to work in Hollywood, and he now does videos for mining companies. And I think they're going to, hopefully they utilize them and make some cool videos here soon. Tectonic, look, they hit it. Alpha Bowl, that hole, I know it's short, 65 meters. Okay, whatever. That's where the grade is. That is telling Tectonic they need to get their poo in a pile and get back out there and drill, and not wait until August or September. I want to see this company go. Okay, that, in my view, that drill hole is telling us more drilling is warranted. That drill hole was basically right under the head of that placer deposit. I think it's like 600,000 ounces or something crazy. That's the source of the gold. It's right underneath their nose. Okay, in my view, they need to get going. Get your traction and go. All right, we're there. We'll try to help. Whatever. Rally the troops. Let's go. Alpha, look, these guys, they pull off miracles. I don't know how the heck they do it, but man, they got good projects. Don't get me wrong, but man, they fight tooth and nail for money, and good on them. Okay, I like to see people that work hard. So we have a lot of respect for these guys. One of the things that really caught my attention, I talked to Berhoney and the new fellow there. I can't think of his name. Tim, I think it was. About Aberna. They're going back to Aberna because they did some remodeling of it. And holy cow, it looks like the copper gold that we first, developed our investment thesis around is actually diving in the opposite direction from which they drilled. That's interesting. He explained why. That's pretty cool. Get back to work, guys. Condor. I'm director there. I'm trying to help Chris. Let's get back to work. Ever's got a lot of targets. He's got a lot of targets he wants to test. Ever's one of my best friends and ever, and pun intended. And we're going to make stuff happen. Okay, we're going to make Condor great again. Western Alaska, two of the best explorers I've ever seen in my life. Kit and Joe are legends in the mining space. And then you got Peter as well. I mean, Peter McGaw's advising him. Out of all the companies, like, I have one of the smartest geologists working for me at Novo, and he went to PDAC, he went to all the booths and stuff. He came to me, and not knowing that, I knew Western Alaska. He said, "I've got this story. It's the best story I've seen here." He says, "These guys at Western Alaska have the goods." I'm like, "Oh, tell me more." And he told me, though, his view of their data, and I can't agree more. Okay, and then I told him, well, I happen to know the company. I love the story. They're going to find the big one this year. Is there any promise? No, but I really wish them well. They need to get off, get in their saddle and go. Let's go. SK Mining, we had a lot of really high grade results. Again, I'm a director. We had high grade results thanks to two young prospectors, John and Jeff, who I've spoken with here recently. They know Bruce Jack. They know other discoveries in this region really well. Like these guys have been working in the area for a long time, and they sampled this new area down in the south part of the SK consolidated SK property and found high grade late last year. Okay, they're just chomping at the bit to get back in the field, and I want to support them. We do have some money, okay, so we can get going. It's not like we have to go out and beg for cash right now, but we want to see these guys back in the ground. I talked to him yesterday. Juggernaut. Look, I talked to Lele. Manuel is their geologist. He is one sharp cookie, and he showed me rock samples from Juggernaut. Said, "Man, those look like Goliath. They look." Yes, okay. Then we went over it in detail, and it's like, holy cow! Lightning twice, maybe. Okay, Juggernaut is quite interesting. At first, I was thinking, okay, are they looking at this as a porphyry? And that's not going to fly. Okay. But the veins there look very sherbet like. Okay. So that's very intriguing. Now that we know what sherbet is, those veins are related, like I said earlier, to those dikes and the magma. I think there's another system like that at the big one, which is their property. Barksdale. Oh my God. You want to talk about this is like arm to arm combat. I'm trying to get this puppy going again. But late last year, we had that drill hole. Did we hit a home run? We face planted right as we were getting into the mineral system, but we had short intervals. I'm a director, right? Short intervals of high grade copper and silver too, which is really interesting. And it looks a lot like the mineralization that they see adjacent to us at S32 in their new peak discovery. Okay. I think we were just getting into it. We're going to fight tooth and nail. Don't know how we're going to conjure this up again just yet, but I think soon we'll get some support. Mining is becoming very trendy here in the U.S. in terms of investment, and maybe Barksdale could be a beneficiary of that. Core assets. Oh my gosh, here's another one. They've hit basically almost every hole they've drilled. They've hit nice high grade CRD mineralization. Do they have evidence of a porphyry? Absolutely, there's something big on that property. Do they have any money? No. Okay, what a crying shame. Oh my gosh, this is a company that has young guys involved, and I know they're not going to sit on their butt. Okay, they're going to get out there and they're going to get stuff going again. All right, best to them. All right, so that's a short version, skinny version of a lot of companies. Let's go to the next slide. Now I'm going to throw one more name out at you, because everybody that was on that previous slide should pay attention to this slide right here. There is one company that we have in our portfolio called Lab Gold, and they are the beneficiaries of a property sale that they sold to New Legacy, or to Newfound Gold. Sorry, my brain's not working today. To Newfound Gold a couple of years ago. They now have, I think, over 16 million or something dollars in the bank, or dollars in stock, or whatever. They got a good treasury. They don't have a property of merit right now. Okay, this is a company that has a lot of cash and needs a property or a company to marry up with. Guess what? There's a lot of companies that I just showed you a previous slide that need. Okay, so I'm trying to kind of stir the pot here. I don't mean to, push anybody, but hello, these guys need a project. All right.